good day, like the one in the photo, the valley up Gorge Creek appears innocuous, inviting almost. Don't be fooled. At the top is the Old Man Range. For the miners of the mid-1800s eking out a living, trying to dig their fortunes, that area had a well-earned nickname, the Great Glacier. At the end of the winter in 1863, massive snowfalls befell the Old Man Range, like the ones seen in 2016. The ferocity and suddenness of the storm of 1863 caught the 200 to 300 gold miners up top on Campbell's Creek off guard. They were now stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea, and they could hunker down and hope not to freeze to death or starve to death, tramp through a 2 to 3 metre snow from up on Campbell's Claim, risk at the same time getting lost on the featureless plateau in whiteout conditions before they made it down to Gorge Creek Valley to the relative safety of the tiny community at Chamonix. For some, that choice wasn't that easy. Putting your own safety first wasn't always the first thought that went through your mind. Leaving good ground could mean when you came back you might find someone else plonked on your old claim. History shows us both options, battering down or taking a perilous march downward, would prove fatal for the unlucky ones, even those trying to rescue the trapped miners. They would be amongst all the fatalities, police included. Chamonix wasn't a town in the sense of the term we'd use today, and, indeed you are correct, brainy you, it was named after a swanky French alpine resort. The contrast could not have been greater. The poor country cousin down under was a packing town. Every bit of plant, every spade, a piece of timber, sack of flour was pack-horsed up to the diggings at Campbell's or carried on the back of miners. And this included feed for the horses. Miners and their horses would make the 25-kilometre journey from Alexandra to the north, or Roxburgh to the south, unload, replenish and rest overnight at Chamonix, reload and then head up to the top and start digging. It also served as the closest pub and bottle store for the blokes on the Old Man Range. Store, stables, feed for horses, blacksmith, you name it. Just not a bank, which is relevant to this story. Nor was a Chamonix built to last. The only permanent stone building belonged to its only permanent resident, John O'Brien. This was a township of 1 on a bad day, 200 on a good one. Lasted approximately 10 years and disappeared altogether when O'Brien died. The itinerant nature of gold mining, where miners would up sticks on a rumour, means we don't really have an exact idea where the township was, even today. Just one crude period map to go off. That's it. And rest assured, and plenty of people have tried to find the site of Chamonix, a store, etc., not motivated out of desire to restore heritage. They didn't purchase a metal detector of trade me to locate an odd horseshoe, rather to get their mitts on a fortune of gold said to be secreted near the township. John O'Brien's. The government knew the dangers posed by anyone venturing up onto the Old Man Range in winter. Not that they would put a kibosh on it, and God forbid, regulate the masses of enterprising immigrants. Gold was a windfall, main export earner. Without the AU revenue, roads and schools wouldn't be getting built. The fledgling nation would literally flounder. The closest city to central Otago's goldfields, Dunedin, was now well on its way to becoming the country's largest, on the back of the gold rush. To mitigate the dangers, the government erected large red poles at 200-metre intervals along the top of the Old Man Range and down Gorge Creek Valley, guide anyone lost in a snowstorm. 1863 was a shit of a year weather-wise in central Otago. Snow wasn't the only thing miners and settlers had to contend with that year. Floods wreaked havoc on vulnerable mining operations positioned close to waterways, big and small. These floods were caused by a combination of warm weather at the end of June, melting snow, and then a barrage of a week of relentless rain at the beginning of July. Regionally, in total, 40 would drown. Miners would be at rest in their huts downriver, and in the next breath carried away to their deaths in the deluge. As with the snowstorms the following month, some bodies would never be found, and the come-and-go nature of gold mining meant the numbers only included the known deaths, the hallmarks of European and Chinese single-man privilege. Then, as if Mother Nature was being a real bitch, snow blizzards then followed in central Otago mid-August, targeting again the most vulnerable, framed calico-tented miners. The press cuttings from the time tell the grim story of what happened when the snow struck. Some were buried on top of the Old Man Range, where they perished. One of those graves, that of William Pitts, remains today. Also to die were two valiant rescuers. The lucky frost-bitten but still alive ones made it down to Chamonix with just the clothes on their backs. The actual death toll will never be known. In this dog-eat-dog environment, miners kept to themselves, often only knew their neighbours by their nickname. The one consistent in the area was John O'Brien. Couldn't find a photo of Mr. O'Brien, and his MySpace site hasn't been updated for a good 15 decades, in line with most profiles. He went big when a Chamonix was being established in the beginning of 1863, operating a store, blacksmith stable, sold feed, sold booze. At its peak, the one-street township boasted a number of nameless tented, gone-the-next-day grog shops, a bakery, even a skittle alley. Hard to imagine all of this when you think back to the original photo of Gorge Creek Valley today. Familiar in the knowledge now that no one has yet to find its exact location. Yet in its heyday it was a thriving place. Gold was, and still is, a boom and bust industry. O'Brien's entire clientele were hard as nails miners. These were asset-rich, cash-poor blokes who would barter the golden rocks with O'Brien for a bottle of the hard stuff or nosh for the nag. O'Brien was more than happy with this arrangement. He could clip the ticket on the exchange rate. The nearest banks to trade gold for cash being in Roxburgh or Alexandra, 25 kilometres in either direction. For the miners and commercial operators, a 2-day trip better spent working. That left O'Brien with a fortune in gold and a problem of how to keep it safe. I've covered how difficult it was at times keeping the fortune in gold safe in a previous video. New Zealand's largest robbery by today's value that occurred on the west coast during the transfer of gold from a smaller bank to a larger one. This literally was the Wild West. It was a long way to alert the coppers, and the crims were often armed. It wasn't a good thing to be known to be sitting on an untraceable fortune. The lifespan of the township of Chamounix was a short one. It was tied to gold. When that dried up, the miners left. O'Brien was now on his own in Gorge Creek. He had 15 acres on which he earned a livelihood farming. Still, there was always that nagging question: what happened to all the gold that went over the bar? Into the till at his shop? Surely he could have afforded a better farm, buy himself some better pigs. The best bet was he was hiding the gold somewhere up the valley. Those quandaries came firmly into focus when in September 1873 O'Brien died. His possessions were then put up for auction. The locals couldn't help but notice his apparent lack of wealth, leading them to think he'd never bothered to cash in all the gold from the decade prior. Spurning a second gold rush in the region. The valley was scoured from top to bottom, finding zilch, nix, zip, nada. Like the township, no one knows where it is. Even if this tale is merely a presumption and turned into a pub rumour, there is a large element of truth to it. And if it is totally true, there well could be someone who found the loot and then kept their trap shut. More tantalisingly, there's still a chance it's there waiting to be found. Any way you look at it, O'Brien's Gold remains an interesting story from New Zealand's past. One where you get to write the ending. Another intriguing gold story from the exact time as this one, the No Town hold-up, follows. That's another story with an open ending. I appreciate all the subscribers who have joined in the last month and all the positive feedback. I will spot you next time. Bye for now.